So I'll be restoring two Hot Wheels cars side by side in this one. They're what you might call Hot Wheels cannon fodder. Very nice representations of legendary muscle cars, but they're just bought by kids and taken home and destroyed. So we're going to try and give them a new lease on life. So this one's the Plymouth Hemi Cuda. Was green, painted silver by some kid. Not that bad underneath, probably, but who knows. And then we've got the Dodge Coronet Super B. Not that bad really, but too late now. They're in bits. We're doing them. So these are the bodies, mostly stripped. Just taking the opportunity to do a quick little comparison. This is another Plymouth Barracuda. This is actually a Plymouth Barracuda, according to the base plate. I got that about a year ago when it just come out. It was actually brand new. I wanted to specifically get one of those just to make it pink, like a sort of cerise pink, and that's what I did. Yeah, so I always thought the Hemi Cuda was the fast one, and the Barracuda was like Barracuda's like the default, the standard version of it, and the Hemi Cuda was the fast one. So I don't. It's odd that the one that I've made pink also has that big scoop on the front, which I would have thought would make that. Never mind, let's not worry about it too much. Let's get on with it. So yeah, anybody who's watched my previous videos will know there's a lot of action involving the metal toothbrush. So we just keep going. So we're doing both these side by side. So you can keep alternating between the two, making the two sort of keep up with each other in terms of, if you used a different way of stripping the paint, you might not have to do all this. And if I'm quite honest, most of the time when I strip using the method that I do, i.e. the coffee jar full of cellulose thinners, which works well for me, a lot of the time if you leave it in there for a day or so, it does remove every scrap of paint, or certainly what's there just kind of flakes off at the slightest touch. Both of these two just seem to have particularly resilient paint. Other methods of stripping might have got this off more effectively, but I know what I know, and I don't mind. You see, this looks quite laborious, actually scrubbing the paint off using the metal toothbrush and the various grades of wire wool and things like that. But I actually enjoy this bit of it. I like this bit. I get why some people might not like it. It does look to be hard work, and it is. It's there's definitely some physical exertion required while you're doing it. But like I say, I like that. It's part of what makes this enjoyable. So here we've got a slightly more efficient method of putting them up next to each other, and then automatically what you're doing to one gets done to the other. So you are sort of doing two at the same time as one, really. So like I say, if this particular paint that was on these cars had come off better, which 9 times out of 10 it does, I don't know why it didn't for these two, we'd be doing quite a bit less of this, really. But anyway, like I say, for me it just means more fun and enjoyment, as odd as that might sound. So yeah, I mean, something like that. I mean, this sort of many-toothed grill of the Cuda, that's something that I've always wanted to have a go at detailing. So we've got to get every scrap out of that, because look at all those lovely details in there. They're just waiting to be done. Where the paint's still there on like the edges of the pillars and stuff, especially on these sort of Coke bottle design cars where it sweeps up at the back, that can be hard to get to. So yeah, pair them both together like that and just drive the brush down between them. This is where it can get a little bit. You've just got to put a bit of pressure on. Put a bit of pressure on and just go for it. Just get it done. And there you go. See, what you can't really see in the video there is I'm putting a fair bit of pressure on there. So yeah, there is some physical effort required, especially when you little buttresses there on the Coronet. You've really got to dig into them. In fact, yep, you really have got to dig in and just get that out with the awl. The awl, there's not much the awl can't do if it comes down to it. You can The oil's just a bit of a fixer that just gets busted out to resolve all and any situations that might crop up. And you see, it's just a free for all. Just any old implement, anything that's handy, just give it a go. So I'm doing my usual haphazard style of alternating between the different things. Brush, then the wire wool, then the finer wire wool, then again whatever's hanging about. If there's a flat blade screwdriver kicking about, just work that into a corner and see what that does. Whatever it takes just to get this, so you get a completely bare metal casting. So these two are about to divert off onto separate paths. So the Plymouth is going to be painted quite differently to the Coronet. So the Plymouth's done for now. That's there we go. It's just all parked up there on the sub bench on the sidelines, just watching. And the Coronet's going to continue. We're not finished with that yet because we need to get probably about 70% of that body a lot shinier. And stuff like this really does need to be got out. Yeah, you could do all this 10 times quicker with a Dremel and a little polishing tool attached. I know this, but I just like to do it myself. I like my own fingers to be doing the work rather than a machine. That's all. I'm not disrespecting anybody who uses a Dremel. They will be saving themselves a lot of time, and they'll be able to get a lot more of these done, and they'll have a lot more free time to do other things. So no disrespect whatsoever. It's just what I personally like. That's all. So you may or may not have noticed we're really paying special attention to the sides and the rear. Should we call it the rear deck of the Coronet? Because they're the bits that we really want to get shined up. The rest of it, the roof and the front, don't really matter. In fact, we don't want them to shine up. It will all become clear. So yeah, we're just continuing in this vein for now. Don't be fooled by the fact that they look reunited. They're not. They're definitely on the divergent paths now. So once again, we get the sanding pads out. So started with the most vicious of them, the 1000 grit. If you don't know the way grit works, 1000 grit is harsher than 2000 grit. So 6000 grit is almost like a piece of paper. 40 grit is something that you could take your skin off with. So we started with the 1000. That's what gets the most of the imperfections and things like that are still there on the casting. So we keep going with that, and then after that we go to 2000, then we go to 3000, and then we get those ones that I've got that I've mentioned them in previous videos where they've barely got any grit left on them at all. Right, we're cutting back to the Plymouth now. We're going to see how the Plymouth's getting on, because that's about to get its paint. Because the way we're painting the Plymouth, the body is ready for that. So there's no paint left on there. It's a smooth surface. You can see the green paint, the original green paint, has actually hung on inside very well. It's not flaking at all, so there's no reason why it can't just stay there and be painted over. If it was flaking off, then yeah, I'd go around it with the metal toothbrush and get the remains of it off. But it's not. It's fine. It's not hurting anybody. So at some point I will do a proper tutorial on how to spray effectively using an aerosol. But I really need to get set up outside for that. So for the time being, it looks a bit hokey, but if you watch the silhouettes, if you watch the shadows, you can actually see. That actually shows it's almost like a moving diagram. It shows the technique quite well. You can see it's just short bursts. You're keeping a bit of distance between it, and you're just giving it little blasts, because that's all it's going to need. It's only this thing we're painting is only little, And the aerosol was designed, well, in theory, to paint a real car with. All right, you're not going to paint an entire real car with one aerosol from a motor factors, but it's things like if somebody, like this gold colour, if somebody had, say, a car that was more or less that colour anyway, and they wanted to respray a certain part of it to match, they might buy it. I mean, it wouldn't look great, but most paint that's sold in motor factors is with the idea of somebody having an idea of what will look really good, and it won't turn out like that in real life. But for these, these paints are more than good enough. Right, so we're back to the Coronet now. So that's on a later stage of sanding now. So we're on the softer pads. I think we're actually on those pads that are almost non-existent, that are kind of many thousands of grit, because they're so fine. So they're almost like polishing. So we're pretty much just polishing the bare metal at this point. So yeah, that's probably the finest pad that I've got. And when I say finest, I mean the lowest. I mean the highest grit. It's possibly not what anybody would call a fine item anymore. So yeah, that's pretty much where we're trying to get to. If you look at this sort of reflection on the rear deck compared to the roof and the front, which we've left. So I'm marking out the areas now with the awl. I'm just demonstrating which areas I've got mirror smooth. So just the very tops there of the front panels, and then the sort of scuttle between the windscreen and the while leaving the bonnet or hood matte along with the roof. Basically because those parts are going to get conventional paint on them, and the rest of it's going to be left kind of mirror surface like this. It's just something a little bit abstract to try out. I'm just briefly mating it back up again with the base plate. It strikes me that I never actually went into what I did with the base plate. The base plate was a little bit, the chrome effect was sort of rubbing off a little bit. So basically, to cut a long story short, I just did the front and rear bumpers in a gloss black, because I thought that'd be a nice contrast for the chrome body. So there, that explains that. So we're just getting it masked up now. There's not a great deal to really see here, apart from this is just somebody putting some sellotape, or just putting some masking tape onto something. There is a slightly fiddly bit to it though. I mean, the rear pillars you've got to be a little bit careful with. You've got to keep, I mean, that's the best way of, so you leave the point like that, and then you just make sure the point's even on both sides. Where the pillars come to a point, just make sure that's the same on both sides. And then for this bit, it curves round like the windscreen base. So just stick the tape straight across it, and then crease it in with your fingernail to make that impression there. And that just gives you a guide just to cut with a fine blade. And there you go. And then hopefully you should have there, and that's that bit off. Yeah, so that's left everything that we want to keep mirror smooth, like the mirror finish. This paint was a bit of a revelation. It's only cheap, but it just turned out to be really good. But it goes on surprisingly thick. So you'll see now, just good bit of distance from the can, and then just quick belts of it just on there, and it does dry very smooth. It goes on thick and dries smooth. You've just got to be really quick with the burst. It was just like I say, it was just a cheap little paint that I just thought I'd try, and the results were surprisingly good. In some ways it's not a cheap paint anyway, because for the size of the can, it's a very small can and you don't really get much in it. So although the price you pay isn't that much, it probably works out to be about the same as the more expensive ones when you take into account just how little of it you get. So we're back to the Plymouth now. That's getting its second coat. This is where you get all those bits that it sort of misses the first time. You make sure you get some into the front and rear ends. Even though we're going to be heavily reworking the front end and we're going to be scraping a lot of that paint out of there. So yeah, that's the Coronet done. And then that's with the masking off. Quite pleased with how that looks. But we just need to put some lacquer on it. Not so much for the sake of the paint, because the paint went on quite glossy anyway. But we need to protect that body, that mirror polished body that we've got. If you just leave that, it'll tarnish. It'll be like a coin. But if you put some lacquer on there, that should prevent that. It seals it from the outside world. Same lacquer as before on the previous video. It's from a motor factors. It's designed to be used on real cars, so it's easily good enough for this. Durable, it gets you good shine. So we're just coming up to a stopping point. So that's what it looks like so far. So not bad, really. And then that's the Plymouth. Obviously there's still lacquer to go on that yet, because we're going to do work to that before the lacquer. End of part 1.